The Christ Letters, with enhanced narration and text. Letter 5.3. The universe is not solid. Here I would remind you that when I lived on earth, I made it abundantly clear every day to the Jews that of myself alone I could do nothing. I constantly stated that it is the Father does the work, not I. I have come at this time to enable you to make the transition from the earthbound human consciousness to that of enlightenment, when a person knows that he or she finally knows the truth of being. Undoubtedly, deeply religious people, indelibly indoctrinated with religious dogma and theology, Jewish, Christian, Muslim, Hindu, or belonging to any other religious persuasion, will find it difficult, even painful, at first, to accept and make good use of these letters, for a conditioned and programmed mind is like concrete. Cherished beliefs, used as talismans, emotional supports and affirmations to give strength in times of crisis, are emotionally imprinted in the subconscious and usually incorporate in them a fear of offending God when contemplating moving on to some higher truth. Unless there is a sincere longing to know the truth of being, rather than traditional beliefs, these mental patterns are almost impossible to annihilate in the mind and emotions, and they block true spiritual progress. I have come expressly to help those who have the will to do so move beyond these barriers to true enlightenment. Therefore, if you feel intuitively that the words on these pages are truth, and you feel drawn to them, have confidence you are ready to begin the spiritual journey outlined in these letters, and I am at hand to give you the courage to pursue it until you reach your goal, true spiritual enlightenment, newness of life, strength of will, and a finding of what I termed the kingdom of heaven. Daily, sincere meditation and prayer will enable a mental cleansing to take place, and gradually, truth and understanding will replace the old myths which once were so dear to you. At the outset of the following teachings, I, the Christ, must remind you that yours is not a solid universe. As you probably know, according to your scientists, solid matter, the visible substance of the world, is really composed of energy particles. The truth of being of your earthly dimension rests on this fundamental reality of creation. To understand my teachings regarding the truth of being, it is necessary to grasp this fundamental seeming emptiness underlying all your created world. The majority of you know this fact of existence intellectually, but it has not yet even remotely filtered through to your consciousness to give you a new perspective of the world and existence itself. You continue as you have done for millennia, thinking that your world is solid and the conditions of the body and all other external phenomena are beyond your control. you believe you are the victim of existence, instead of which the reverse is true, and your daily lives reflect these beliefs. Therefore, it is absolutely necessary for me to return and help you move on to a higher perception of truth. As I said in letter 1, after enlightenment in the desert, I came back into my world of Palestinian towns and villages and immediately began to control the elements of matter wherever I saw the necessity to help those who were deprived or suffering. I have come to show you exactly why I was able to do this. As I revealed to you in letter 1, during the time I received full illumination in the desert, I was shown that matter was not really solid. I was not given to understand exactly how the electrical particles, which I termed the shimmer of motes, took on the appearance of visible matter. I only knew that these motes were moving at high frequencies of speed within God-mind, and God-mind was therefore universal. I perceived that God-mind was both the creator and substance of all things within creation itself. Of this I was absolutely certain. I also saw very clearly that human thought, when fraught with conviction or emotion, radically affected this process of materialization of visible forms. Therefore, the human mind could and did interfere with the true intention of God-mind. It was a thrilling and exalting realization, since the myths taught me by the Jewish rabbis were clearly false and were immediately swept out of my mind. I embraced the truth with excitement, since I now realized why people experienced misery and suffering. This emanated from their own thought processes. I was also given to see the communities of living particles, which science has named cells, at work within every living thing. I was aware of the divine harmony controlling the work of the cells, which were busily building and maintaining the various parts of physical bodies of all living creatures and plant life, big and small. This is why I drew heavily on the countryside to give examples of the immanence and activity of the Father within the least of wildlife, such as plants and birds. As I have clearly explained in letters 1 to 3, I called God-mind the Father, because I was enabled to see, perceive the true nature of the God-mind, and was determined that when I returned to the people of Palestine to describe the revelations I had received, they would understand that their beliefs imbued in their very consciousness by the rabbis were entirely false. I saw that the true nature of God-mind was the very highest form of divine love, and this could be seen consistently active within every living thing. As I mentioned above, out of this knowledge I was able to perform miracles, and control the elements where appropriate and necessary. Just as I longed to explode the myths which possessed the minds of the Jews in Palestine, so do I yearn to show you that many of the theories put forward by your scientists have been prompted by a strong reaction to the church dogma and doctrines in years gone by. To understand this statement, you must realize that until the time of Darwin, whilst the various Christian churches held dominance over the minds of the populace, it was generally accepted that the universe had been created exactly as written in Genesis in the biblical Old Testament. When men of science attempted to announce their discoveries and theories, they were forced to describe their new beliefs in the presence of enormous religious opposition. Consequently, they found it necessary to concentrate much of their mental energy on proving the prophets' pronouncements wrong. In doing so, their agenda caused them to lose clarity of vision, and they also became ego-driven. Thereafter, any intuitive perception proposed by the scientific fraternity was derided and rejected out of hand by other scientists. Because of this mental climate, the pendulum of the search for truth swung solely to an undeviating belief in reason and logic, thus imprisoning the human intellect in materialism for the answers to the origins of life and existence. Therefore, it is absolutely necessary for me to refute some of the scientific theories and show them to be as erroneous as are the so-called truths of Christian doctrine. In arriving at some of these theories, scientist and churchman alike have dipped into the realms of unproven, preposterous suppositions to answer questions which have previously been unanswerable by the earthly mind only. Having told you that the substance of your material world is basically electrical particles agitated at high speed within space, your science is unable to tell you why such energy particles take on the density and form of matter, except to speak of forces of fusion which happen to create the elements. Science cannot tell you what is the motivating force which draws particles into the form of elements. Neither can science tell you from whence such energy particles originally came, except to say that they were released during the time of the Big Bang, which they believe gave the first impetus to creation. Why a sudden Big Bang? Of what? What was the motivating factor behind it? Science speaks about electromagnetism, but cannot say from whence come such energies, which appear and disappear. Where do they go? Why do they come back? From the human perspective, there appears to be no intelligible activity within or behind its work. Science says that electromagnetism just is, a simple fact of existence, yet it produces highly purposeful and intelligent work in the form of millions of billions of substances, of which your universe is made. How does this happen? There is nothing that electromagnetism has brought into visible being which the human mind can deem to be lacking purpose or meaning. Science ignores this most basic and vital level of creation. Without an answer to this question as to why everything which has been brought into visible manifestation by the activity of the twin energies of electromagnetism is invariably purposeful, successful, and rational, nothing of any value in the search for your origins will be discovered. Until science can probe and discover the reality of the space in which electrical particles of visible being are supported, science will forever remain behind locked doors of materialism. It will be barred to eternal truth and universal wisdom, and imprisoned within the bondage of reason alone, reason which is solely the product of the finite activity of brain cells. It is to the true nature of the space I intend to introduce you. But before proceeding to this, I must first bring many highly pertinent questions to your attention. Down the ages, much of the work produced by electromagnetism has appeared to the mind, vision, and touch of living entities as being solid, unchangeably durable. Metals, wood, rocks, living entities were all believed to be composed of solid, inanimate, or living matter. With such a belief in a solid universe, it is only natural that the mystical prophets of old should have envisaged a mighty individual possessing enormous powers in creating all the solid substances of the universe. In visualizing such a mighty individual, it was only natural they should perceive a kingly figure of universal control, possessing a retributive nature when confronted with the behavior of mankind, which created a turbulent society. Neither prophets of old nor science of today has been near to the truth of existence. Both have completely missed the truth.